Namaskar everyone. Welcome to the GST amendment series, which are applicable for chartered accountant, company secretary and ICWA student who are going to appear for examination in the May or June attempt 2021. So this GST amendment series is covering 3 lectures. Lecture 1 has already been posted, so this is lecture number 2. Now moving to the next section, which is section 50, which talks about interest on delayed payment of taxes. So section 50 of CGST Act deals with levy of interest on delayed remittance of output GST liability. So understand this section. This section says that if your output tax liability is rupees 10 lakh and if you failed to deposit your output GST liability, then on the entire value you are liable to pay interest under section 50. But there were certain assessees who questioned this section. They were saying that we have input liability, we have input tax credit into our account. So if we set off that amount, then only on the remaining amount interest should be levied. So finally, the GST department made correction into their act and this proviso was inserted in section 50. So it states that interest is leviable only on that portion of output liability which is discharged by way of cash. That is, by moving to the example which I have quoted into this presentation, the output liability of assessee was rupees 10 lakh and 6 lakh was the input tax credit available into the GST portal itself. So the balance amount is only rupees 4 lakh and hence interest on delayed payment should be charged only on rupees 4 lakh and not on rupees 10 lakh. So before the amendment was introduced into the section 50, the interest was charged on the entire amount which is rupees 10 lakh. But there is a point to be noted down. What? However, this proviso is not applicable where return is furnished after commencement of proceeding under section 73 or 74 of the CGST Act. So remember this thing, if you are falling under section 73 or 74 which deals with the matter relating to fraud, then in that case no benefit will be provided to you and the interest will be charged on the entire amount. Nevertheless, whatever amount is there in your input tax credit account. So in that case, interest will be payable on gross liability and not on the net liability, which is the entire rupees 10 lakh. Now, moving to the next section, which is section 168A, power of government to extend time limit in special circumstances. So why this section was introduced? This was a new section which was inserted on 31st March 2020 after this COVID pandemic came into existence into the entire world. So now after introduction of this amendment, it gave power to the government that you can extend the time limits of various forms, various returns to be filed by assessee as per the situation, as per the scenario which is prevailing into the country. So the government on the recommendation of council. So wherever the word council appears, it denotes GST council. So if GST council gives a recommendation to government, then by notification, the government can extend the time limit which is specified or prescribed or notified under the Act. That is, if the deadline is 10th March, so they could extend it up to 10th April or as per their own convenience, just on the basis of recommendation which is given by GST council. So if the GST council gives a recommendation to government, then only the government is going to increase the time limits. So why this power was given? I have already explained you that there may be a situation of war, epidemic, flood, drought, fire, cyclone, earthquake, COVID, or any other calamity which is caused by nature or otherwise, which is affecting the implementation of any of the provisions of this act. So this new section has been introduced from 31st March 2020. So remember this thing, this is a new section. This was not there when the act was actually incorporated into the country. Now, this is again an important point, which is levy of GST on directors' remuneration. So if you have already studied company law, then you must be knowing that there are three types of directors into the country, which is executive, the other one is non-executive, and the third one is independent. So let me just give you a brief glimpse about these three concepts so that you could understand that on directors' remuneration whether GST would be levied or not. So, directors' remuneration refers to compensation the company gives to its directors for the services which they are rendering. So, this compensation could be in the form of fees, salary, or by use of company's asset. The remuneration which is paid to directors is issued only on receiving approval from the shareholders and the board of directors. So now director could be an executive, non-executive, managing, independent, small shareholder director, women director, additional, alternate, and so on, depending upon their responsibilities towards the company. Now, on the basis of these responsibilities, we have classified them into three categories, and then we are identifying whether GST will be levied or not. So now, as per GST law, services that are provided by employee to employer in accordance with the employment agreement are neither considered as supply of goods nor supply of services. Why this happens so? Because when the employee is rendering services to the employer and the remuneration which employee is getting, that remuneration is taxable under direct tax head, and therefore we will not levy two taxes simultaneously on the same revenue, and this is the reason that GST is not leviable in such cases. However, if these services are not classifiable as employer-employee relationship, then there is a responsibility to deduct GST on that amount. So in that case, GST will be levied on reverse charge basis. So remember this thing, I am talking about two things. If there is an employer-employee relationship, then GST is not leviable as the amount is taxable under the direct tax head. But in other situations, GST will be levied where there is no employer-employee relationship and reverse charges applicable. Now, let's understand what is this executive director and how the taxes are going to be levied. So, executive director is a full-time working director of the company. They have a greater responsibility towards the organization. Hence, such director may end up earning remuneration in both the capacities, that is as an employee or as not an employee. So where the whole-time director is an employee of the company, then GST is not charged on remuneration paid to the company's executive or whole-time director or managing director. But where the whole-time director is not an employee of the company, then services which are provided by director is subject to GST at the rate of 18% and will fall under the reverse charge mechanism. So this happens only in the case of executive director, because executive director could be an employee or could not be an employee. So being an employee, no GST is leviable, and being not an employee, reverse charge GST is applicable. Now, let us understand about the non-executive directors. They are not involved in the day-to-day working of the company. They are usually involved in planning and policy making in the best interest of the company. Hence, the services provided by non-executive director is subject to GST. Why this is so? Because they are not involved in day-to-day working. so they are not considered as employees, and therefore reverse charge is applicable. Similar thing happens with independent director. They also do not have any direct relationship with the company. They usually give expert advices to the board of directors as and when required. They do not take part in the day-to-day business of the company and are not classified as employee, partner, proprietor of the company for at least 3 years prior to being appointed as an independent director, and hence GST applies to them, and the similar thing happens. It is taxable under reverse charge on the basis of reverse charge. So now moving to the next amendment, which is section 25, which talks about the removal of difficulties by central government. So this section 25 is covered under IGST Act and not under CGST Act. So if any difficulty arises in giving effect to any provisions of the act, that means the government has prepared an act was implemented into the country, but it was quite difficult to implement the provisions of the act. Then on the recommendation of council, again that is GST Council, by passing a general or special order published in official gazette, they can make provisions which are not inconsistent with the provisions of the act or rules or regulations as may be necessary for the purpose of removing the said difficulty. That is, they could liberalize the policy, they could make amendment into the policy, into the act which is prevailing, but it is becoming quite difficult to apply the provisions of that act. Earlier, now what is the amendment in section 25? Earlier, the years which I have mentioned, which is 5 years, earlier it was 3 years. So the changes were allowed to be made into the act, into the policies within a span of 3 years only from the date of commencement of this act. But since 3 years got over on 30th June 2020, and still there are many laws or many acts which have been framed under the CGST or IGST. There are various sections which are still not so convenient for the customers, for the consumers, for the suppliers. So still the changes are to be incorporated, and therefore this is the reason they have increased the time limit by further 2 years. So now the total time limit is 5 years from the commencement of this act. And you already know that this act came into existence on 1st July 2017. So now the time limit goes up to 2022, 30th June. So every order made under this section shall be laid as soon as may be after it is made before each house of the parliament. So this is the regular proviso that whenever you make any section, then the final approval has to be made when it passes from both the houses of parliament. So nothing more special, just increase in the time limit by further 2 years. Now this is the important amendment which is introduced into the GST law again, which is the QR code. So QR code stands for Quick Response Code. So I want to tell you one more thing, that this QR code which is applicable for May and June attempt is talking about B2B transactions, that is business to business. And in the November or in the December attempt, one more amendment is to be made into this section, which is dynamic QR code, which talks about B2C transaction, that is business to customers transaction. So we will not be talking about B2C transactions in this lecture, because this video has been prepared only for the May and June attempt students and not for the November or December students. So let's quickly go towards the QR code or quick response code topic. So now the quick response code have embedded invoice reference number in it. So remember, we need an invoice reference number where invoices are being issued in respect of B2B transactions. Now, the GST Council approved the proposal to introduce electronic invoice in a phased manner in the 37th meeting, which was held on 20th September 2019. Accordingly, steps have been taken to introduce e-invoicing for reporting of business to business invoices to GST system beginning from 1st January 2020 on voluntary basis. So earlier when this QR code concept got started, that is from 1st January 2020, it was on voluntary basis. But with effect from 1st October 2020, there is a switch from voluntary to mandatory e-invoicing. Now, whenever there is a B2B transaction and whenever you are issuing any invoice to another businessman, then it is mandatory that you issue a e-invoice and not a normal invoice. Now, all registered businesses with an aggregate turnover based on PAN in any preceding financial year from 2017 to 2018 onwards, which is greater than 100 crore, will be required to issue e-invoice. Just keep patience, then I will be explaining you about this 500 crore also. All registered, so invoicing is not generation of invoice by a government portal. Taxpayer will continue to create their GST invoice on their own accounting or billing or ERP system as per e-invoice system. These invoices will then be reported to invoice registration portal. On such reporting, IRP will generate a unique e-invoice reference number, which is digitally signed, and they will return the e-invoice to the supplier. Just a second. All right. Now, a GST e-invoice will be valid only with a valid invoice reference number. So, presently invoices, credit note and debit note when issued by notified person for B2B transactions are covered under e-invoice. Though different documents are covered, for case of reference and understanding, the system is referred as e-invoicing. Now, what the amendment has been introduced under the QR code. Earlier the time limit, because the act was introduced on, as I have already told you, that it was brought into effect from 1st October, from when on 20th September a meeting was held, and then it was implemented from 1st January 2020 itself. So therefore the condition over there at the time of 1st January was 100 lakh. But since they moved to mandatory e-invoicing system, so the limit got increased, and now the aggregate turnover, which is checked for the purpose of e-invoicing, is rupees 500 crore. So now when we check that whether the company is liable for e-invoicing or not, then we will be focusing over 500 crore and not over 100 crore. Now, e-invoicing can be obtained through government notified websites. Like, let me give you an idea about the websites. The websites are invoice registration portals, www.einvoice1.gst.gov.in, and then you can move up to 10. So there are 10 different websites. You can generate your invoice reference number from any of the above invoices. Now, what you have to do? You have to prepare a hard copy of invoice registration, and then you have to upload it on these websites. And when you will upload on the given website, on any of the given website, then they will generate an invoice reference number. Now, this invoice reference number along with a QR code will be generated by these websites. Now, you will paste the same onto the invoices which you are going to issue to your customers, that is to the other businessman. Now, this proviso, that is the proviso relating to QR code, is not applicable on insurance companies, banking companies, financial institutions, NBFCs, goods transport agencies, passenger transport suppliers, supplier of services by way of admission to the exhibition of cinematographic film in multiplex screens and in special economic zone units. So remember these exception cases, because QR code concept is not applicable on these sections, on these notified category of persons, even though their limit exceeds rupees 500 crore. Now the last point is important, because this proviso is not applicable on special economic zone unit, but it is applicable on special economic developers. So if in case you find special economic developers, then you will be checking the limit, which is aggregate, that is 500 crore. Now, however, the commission may, on the recommendation of GST Council, by notification can exempt any other person also from issuance of invoices under this sub rule, subject to the conditions and restrictions as may be specified in the notification. So this is a small list. This list could be increased or it could be decreased by the government officials. Now the next topic is the practical question on this QR code concept. So please understand this example, as it is important from your exam point of view also. Maharaja Private Limited has a special economic zone unit. I am not writing developers, it is unit, and a regular DTA. So before moving ahead, let's talk about this special economic zone unit. This unit is already covered in our exception. In our exceptions, let me take you back to the exception. Yes, over here, special economic zone unit. So my first answer is going to be that if you are talking about special economic zone unit, then it is exempt from issuing e-invoicing. All right. So our answer is already half a way complete, as we have already told that the proviso relating to QR code e-invoicing is not applicable on special economic zone units. Now moving ahead, Maharaja Private Limited has an special economic zone unit and a regular DTA unit, domestic unit. The aggregate total turnover of Maharaja Private Limited is more than 500 crore. Again, moving ahead, when I am talking about whether this proviso is applicable or not, then we are taking the aggregate. So if I look over this question, before moving ahead to the next line, it seems as if to the domestic unit, this QR code concept is applicable, because the aggregate turnover of the entire company is more than 500 crore. However, individually the turnover of domestic tariff unit is below 100 crore for financial year 1920, but we are not concerned about the individual turnover. So I think you must have got the answer. Meanwhile, you have read the question. The QR code concept is not applicable on special economic zone unit, but it is applicable on DTA unit. Reason being, the aggregate turnover of the company is more than 500 crore. And we are not concerned about the individual turnover, which is below 100 crore. So reading the answer, in this scenario, special economic zone unit is exempt from e-invoicing. However, e-invoicing will be applicable to DTA unit, because the aggregate turnover of the legal entity in this case is more than 500 crore. The eligibility is based on aggregate annual turnover and not on individual turnover on the common portal. So I think you must have understood this QR concept. Now let me just give you a glimpse of all the topics that we have read today. So according to the amendments which have been introduced into the GST law, it seems that section 50 is important to you, because it talks about the interest penalty, which is either to be levied on 10 lakh or on 4 lakh. So if you are covered under section 73 or 74, then it would be 10 lakh, otherwise it is going to be 4 lakh. Moving to next section 168, I don't think that there are any chances that this section could be asked in your examination. Moving to the next topic, which is about directors remuneration. Just remember 2 points, not more than 2 points. If you are covered under the employer employee relationship, then no GST is levied, otherwise GST is leviable on the basis of reverse charge. Then I don't think again this section is going to be asked in your examination, which is about section 25, removal of difficulties and improving or increasing the time limit from 3 to 5 years. Now, this QR code, this is very important. Just remember, we always talk about aggregate turnover, which is 500 crore, and it is to be checked from 2017-18 till date, that if you have crossed this 500 crore limit in any of the financial year, then QR code concept is applicable on you. And if in question they ask you about dynamic QR code, which is more or less next to impossible that it would be asked into this May or June attempt, then dynamic QR code is for B2C transactions. QR code is about B2B transaction. Just remember the exception cases where this QR code concept is not applicable. And remember, we talk about special economic zone unit, which is exempt. Otherwise, if you are a special economic zone developer, then this concept is applicable on you. That's it for today. I think you have understood all the concepts by the time, and now we are just left with one more lecture on this GST, and then the amendment portion will be completed. That's it for today. Thank you so much, and keep on watching my videos, and I will keep you updated about the third video lecture also. Thank you so much.